We are on the verge of such an exciting time in this country. I love presidential primary season. The debates are going to start in August, and we're going to make sure that we've got great advocates for all the Republican candidates for you right here on O'Connor tonight. We're loading up, and we've got one of my favorite guys who was just a lion on behalf of Donald Trump during the 2016 campaign, and he was part of the administration. He is the former Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services, Michael Caputo. Michael, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you, Larry.
And I know you love politics too. And listen, you are an advocate for President Trump, but I love seeing you engage on the issues, on the topics, on who the best candidate is. I can tell you've got a passion for this system that we have in America, and may the best man win.
It is, I've worked in dozens and dozens of campaigns in 9 or 10 countries. I wrote the election law for the Russian Federation and for Ukraine. The first draft, of course, they've changed it a million times. Many years ago, I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a passion as much as an addiction, because the downsides, there are so many.
Well, and we should remind people the downsides. Because you were involved in the 2016 campaign and because you effectively helped President Trump win that election, you were the target of James Comey, of Andrew McCabe, of the Justice Department, of Robert Mueller. They bankrupted you. And no charges were ever filed, were they?
No, and in fact, now we know it was all grew out of a campaign tactic of Hillary Clinton that everybody embraced in the federal government. I always used to laugh when my friend Roger Stone would talk about the deep state, but then I met him. It's a horrible experience, but it wasn't just mine. It was really about 50 families. We think about Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Carter Page, J.D. Gordon, the other folks. Those are the frontline people. There are a lot of people whose names you don't know, and people who didn't want to go out and talk to the media. And we all have kids, by the way, and it affects the kids. There's been attempted suicides. There's been kids being pulled out of school, and it goes on and on and on. And as we find out, it's nothing at all. And here we are. Which
brings us, of course, to the spectacle this week of these 37 federal counts. And it's like happening all over again, but on steroids. And I want you to respond to what we're seeing in the mainstream media when Chuck Todd and Rachel Maddow and Jake Tapper, they wring their hands and they're just dumbfounded that it seems that these federal charges actually make President Trump more likable and more popular with the people who support him, and actually swing people over to his side who were undecided. Can you help explain that for them?
Sure. I mean, I as a co-founder of Americano Media, we've done a lot of research into the Hispanic vote. One of the things we found is that they vote like everybody else on most of those issues, that we all care about economy and such. But when we get into things like our country behaving like a third world dictatorship where, one political party uses the federal government, the national government to imprison the previous president, happens all over the place. The president has spoken to it ad nauseum. It doesn't just irritate Hispanics whose families have run from that and who are the jury pool in Miami. It also irritates Americans who understand, who are not from Latin America, who understand that they've seen this movie before. And in a lot of ways, after all this crazy Russia collusion stuff where everybody was calling me a Russian spy, I'm married to a Ukrainian, by the way. I'd be really unpopular at home, right? But the terrible truth is we now live in Russia because this only happens in places like Russia.
Yeah. Michael Caputo, you mentioned Miami, the immigrants from Nicaragua, Venezuela, Cuba who were witnessing this, and you're right, they 100% know what's happening. They've seen this before, and so that brings us to this exclusive video that you're sharing with us. Apparently, President Trump just delivered a message to the people of Miami, to the people of Florida, via your outlet, Americano Media. Let's take a look at this video.
I want to thank all of the thousands of people in Miami, great place, for showing up at the courthouse and doing it in such an elegant manner, but showing respect because you recognize that this was a false and fraudulent indictment of me by corrupt people. To see the love and just the spirit was incredible. It was an incredible thing to witness. And the Hispanic community, Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, so much, and so many people. I just want to thank everybody. It was heartwarming to watch it. The love, the total love and the spirit. So again, to Miami and to all of the people in Miami, which we've had tremendous success with, which is very, very special and a very special place. But more importantly, very, very special people. Thank you very much for being there. I appreciate it.
There you go. That's your first look at that video via Americano Media. And Michael, listen, this is Florida. This is Governor Ron DeSantis' state, where he just did incredibly well with the Latino vote in his reelection. But how do you respond? If you're Governor DeSantis, how do you respond to this?
Well, I'll tell you, Ron DeSantis is very popular in Florida. I'll tell you, we moved down here to get away from Antifa in New York, and one of the big inputs for us was the governor. He's a great guy. But right now, he's not doing real well. Went up against Donald Trump in the polls before the primary. We're still a long way away. But my guess is in Florida, especially among the Hispanic vote, which is so much a big part of the Florida primary, I think that this moves almost every conservative, certainly a likely Republican voter among the Hispanics, primary voter, over to Donald Trump. And the reason why is because they've seen this movie before, right? And they know that after their parents or their grandparents or even they ran from Cuba or Nicaragua or elsewhere, they came to America, there's really nowhere else to go. And they see this as an existential point. It's not just going to show up in the polls where the 2022 midterms, which weren't supposed to be any good at all, right? By any stretch, the Hispanics came out in record numbers, 41% for Republicans. That's up from, I think, 29% in 2012 Obama. It's a collapse for the Democrats. But what's interesting here is this will move another 7 to 9%. If we get 51% of Hispanics in the United States in the Republican Parliament 24, the Democrat vote model collapses. And let me tell you something, that is the jury pool here in Miami.
Earlier today, speaking of Miami and the Latino vote, the mayor, the Republican mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez, he announced that he's now running for president. Is that going to make a difference at all in this dynamic? He's now the only Latino candidate for the Republican nomination.
Well, I mean, as usual, the local politics down here in Miami are kind of cartoonish at times, and there's all kinds of allegations against every single person serving in important places like the morality. But remember, there's the mayor of Miami, and then there's the mayor of Miami-Dade. The real power is with the mayor of Miami-Dade. I believe that the mayor is running because he really wants to get his ideas out. I just don't think he's going to be able to transfer his tiny base in Miami, which is really split up because Republicans here are split on him. I don't think he's going to be able to translate that into something on a national movement. He's also very anti-Trump. I don't think he's going to even have a blip on the Florida primary. And if you can't win the Florida primary, you better not run in it, which is also, by the way, what Ron DeSantis is worried about.
Michael, our final minute here, and one of the reasons I like you as an analyst is, yes, you support President Trump, but oftentimes you tell it like it is, even if it's not necessarily to the benefit of Mr. Trump. A lot of people are saying that if the Republican primary is a referendum on Trump, Trump wins. But if the general election is also a referendum on Trump, Trump loses. How do you respond to that?
I don't think that that's true. I think the general election polls are still pretty far out. I think Donald Trump has a higher hill to climb than, let's say, another Republican, for example, Ron DeSantis, maybe. But you understand that what has made Donald Trump unpopular among some sides of the American electorate has made him immensely popular among others. And I think the real question for Donald Trump is if he can convince people that what's been happening to him is really happening to them. This, as you know, Larry, isn't just the fall of Donald Trump. Because of the way that the federal government has been weaponized against people like me and my daughters and my family, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, but the way it's been manifested in power against Donald Trump. People know this is existential. Yeah. And I think he's going to be able to make that transaction in the general election, let people understand that it's about the future of America. We saw the fall of Rome. We're about to see something like it.
I think you're right. And by the way, every day that Joe Biden and his son and his brother and the rest of his family go without any kind of real investigation, let alone indictments, it rings that message home. Michael Caputo, we'll be hearing from you quite a bit between now and all the election days ahead. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.